We are moving from public conduct, how you act, to strategic secrecy, what you hide. In the world of Robert Greene, power is a game of masks, and the moment you let yours slip to reveal a vulnerability, the sharks don't just circle, they strike. We will follow the journey of Julian, a brilliant but leaky strategist, as he learns from a shadow mentor how to surgically remove the 7 vulnerabilities that are currently sabotaging his rise to the top. The world of power does not look like a battlefield. It looks like a dinner party. It looks like a polite boardroom meeting, a casual coffee with a colleague, or a late-night chat with a trusted friend. This is the first and most dangerous illusion. Robert Greene teaches us that every human interaction is a subtle measurement of strength and weakness. We are all, whether we admit it or not, scanning each other for the limp, that one soft spot, that one crack in the armor where a blade can be inserted. Julian sat in the plush leather chair of a corner office overlooking the city, feeling the warmth of a recent victory. He had just closed a deal that would net his firm millions. He was the man of the hour. As his CEO, a cold-eyed man named Sterling, offered him a glass of vintage scotch, Julian felt a surge of pride. In that moment of triumph, Julian did something that 99% of people do, and it was his first step toward the abyss. He looked into Sterling's eyes, waiting for a nod of approval. A well done, a sign that he was finally one of the boys. He didn't realize that by seeking that validation, he had just revealed his first and most fundamental weakness. He had signaled that his self-worth was a commodity that Sterling owned. He had shown that he was still a child, looking for a father figure's blessing. Sterling, a master of the 48 laws, didn't give the nod. He simply took a sip of his drink and asked a seemingly innocent question about Julian's childhood. And Julian, loosened by the scotch and the high of success, began to talk. This is the central tragedy of the human condition in the arena of power. We believe that intimacy is the same as safety. We think that by opening up, we are building bridges. In reality, we are often building the scaffold for our own execution. Robert Greene's philosophy is built on a hard, cold truth. The only way to be truly unshakable is to be inscrutable. If people do not know where your soft spots are, they cannot hurt you. If they do not know what you crave, they cannot tempt you. If they do not know what you fear, they cannot threaten you. Julian's first mistake was not the scotch or the talking, it was his failure to understand the law of formlessness. By seeking approval, he had given himself a shape. He had defined himself as someone who is moved by praise. A person who is moved by praise is a person who can be controlled by the withholding of it. This is the first of the 7 weaknesses we will explore, the need for validation. It is a hunger that radiates from your pores, and to a predator it smells like blood in the water. As the evening wore on, Sterling watched. Julian with the detached interest of a biologist observing a specimen. Julian began to vent about a rival in the firm, a woman named Elena. He spoke with a slight edge in his voice, a flash of irritation that he couldn't quite suppress. This was his second reveal, emotional reactivity. Robert Greene warns us in Law 24 to play the perfect courtier, which means being a master of your own emotions. The moment you show anger, frustration, or even excessive excitement toward an enemy, you have lost. Why? Because you have shown that they have the power to disturb your peace. You have shown them exactly which button to press to make you lose your cool. Eleanor is talented, Julian said, trying to sound objective but failing. But she's reckless. She doesn't respect the hierarchy. Sterling smiled, a thin, predatory line. He didn't care about Elena's recklessness. He cared that Julian was bothered by it. By revealing his irritation, Julian had handed Sterling a map of his ego. Now Sterling knew that if he wanted to rattle Julian, all he had to do was promote Elena or give her a prestigious project. He had identified the nerve and was now keeping his finger hovering right over it. This is why the greats, the Machiavellis, the Richelieus, the Greenes emphasize the mask of indifference. In public, and especially among those who have power over you, your face must be a statue. You must never show what hurts you, because in the game of power, Information is not just power, it is a weapon. When you reveal a weakness, you are not being authentic. You are being vulnerable in a world that does not reward vulnerability. You are showing the world where to strike when the time comes. Julian felt the scotch warming his throat, unaware that he was currently being dissected. He moved on to his third weakness, something he thought was a strength, his honesty about his past. He told Sterling about a previous business failure, a startup that had gone under 3 years ago. He framed it as a learning experience, a sign of his resilience. But in Sterling's mind, it was recorded differently. It was recorded as the stain of failure. In the high-stakes world, your past is not a resume. It is a ledger of your reliability. Robert Greene's 10th law is to avoid the unhappy and unlucky by associating himself with a failure, even a past one. Julian was risking being seen as contagious. He was showing a crack in his history. A master of power keeps their past shrouded in mystery or presents it as a series of unbroken successes. They know that the public and the elite judge you by the end rule. If you mention a failure, that failure becomes a permanent part of your form. As the clock ticked toward midnight, Julian felt like he was winning the night. He felt connected to his boss. He felt powerful. He didn't realize that he was currently a man standing in a glass house, handing stones to the giant outside. He had already revealed 3 of the 7 fatal weaknesses, and the night was far from over. He was about to enter the most dangerous part of the conversation, the part where he would reveal his gorge, the one thing he couldn't say no to. The air in the office grew heavy with the unspoken dynamics of the hunt. Sterling leaned forward, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. "Julian, you've done well, but tell me, what is it you're really after? Everyone has a price. Everyone has a dream they'd burn the world for. What's yours?" Julian hesitated. His heart beat a little faster. This was the moment of truth. He was about to reveal the 4th weakness, the one that Robert Greene tells us must be guarded with our lives. The specific lack, the secret greed. If Sterling knew what Julian truly wanted, whether it was fame, total autonomy, or a specific kind of revenge, he would no longer be an employee. He would be a puppet. Julian hesitated for a fraction of a second, but the silence felt like an interrogation, and his instinct to please overrode his strategic caution. He leaned in, lowering his voice as if sharing a sacred secret, unaware that he was simply handing Sterling the leash. "I want to be the one who changes the skyline of this city," Julian whispered. "I don't just want the money, Sterling. I want the name. I want to look at the tallest tower and know that without me, it wouldn't exist. I want a legacy that outlives my own heartbeat." Sterling nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. To Julian, it looked like respect. To a student of Robert Greene, it was the identification of the 4th weakness, the secret greed. Every person has a thumbscrew, a specific hole in their soul that they are trying to fill. For some, it is a hunger for power. For others, it is a desperate need for fame or a specific kind of revenge. By naming his legacy, Julian had given Sterling the ultimate leverage. Now Sterling didn't need to pay Julian more. He only needed to offer him the illusion of legacy. He could trap Julian in a gilded cage of prestige projects that served Sterling's interests while feeding Julian's ego. He had found the button that, when pressed, would make Julian work until he collapsed. As the scotch continued to blur the lines between professional distance and personal familiarity, Julian fell into the trap of the 5th weakness, excessive transparency. He began to talk about his routines, his morning habits, and even the specific ways he structured his week to maximize his output. He thought he was showing off his discipline. He thought he was proving his worth as a high-level operator. But Greene warns us in Law 17 to keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. By laying out his schedule and his methods so clearly, Julian was becoming predictable. Sterling now knew exactly when Julian was at his peak and when he was vulnerable. He knew Julian's patterns. In the game of power, predictability is a death sentence. If your enemies, or even your superiors, know exactly how you operate, they can move around you. They can time their attacks or their demands to hit you when your guard is down. A true strategist is like a shapeshifter. They change their methods, their hours, and their moods to ensure that no one can ever truly map them. Julian, in his desire to be seen as a professional, had turned himself into a book that Sterling could read at his leisure. The conversation drifted toward the pressures of the job. Julian, feeling the weight of the silence that Sterling occasionally weaponized, felt the need to fill the air. He began to complain about a lack of resources in his department, mentioning that he felt he couldn't perform at his best without his specific team of analysts. "They are my eyes and ears," Julian said, trying to sound like a supportive leader. "Without them, I'm flying blind." Sterling's eyes sharpened. He had just identified the sixth weakness, dependence on external crutches. Robert Greene emphasizes the importance of self-reliance. The moment you admit that your power depends on someone or something else, a specific assistant, a certain technology, or even a lucky charm, you have revealed a point of failure. Sterling now knew that to neutralize Julian, he didn't have to fire him. He only had to dismantle Julian's team. By admitting his dependence, Julian had confessed that his strength was borrowed. A master of power ensures that they are the sun, and everyone else is merely a planet orbiting them. They never admit that they need the planets to shine. "You're very loyal to your team, Julian," Sterling said, his voice dripping with a false warmth that should have chilled Julian to the bone. "That's admirable. But tell me, what happens when that loyalty is tested? What happens when the world isn't as polite as this office?" Julian felt a flicker of discomfort, a primal alarm bell ringing somewhere deep in his subconscious, but he ignored it. He was too deep in the performance. He wanted to prove he was tough. He started telling a story about a conflict he had with a vendor, a man who had tried to cheat the firm. Julian described how he had put the man in his place by shouting him down in a public lobby. He told the story with a grin, expecting Sterling to laugh at his dominance, but Sterling didn't laugh. He saw the seventh weakness, the need to appear powerful. This is the most common mistake made by those who are insecure in their position. They confuse aggression with authority by admitting that he lost his temper and made a public scene. Julian revealed that he was easily rattled. He showed that he lacked the predatory calm that defines true power. Robert Greene's Law 28 tells us to enter action with boldness, but that boldness must be calculated, never emotional. A man who shouts is a man who has run out of options. A man who makes a scene is a man who is desperate for the world to notice him. By the time the bottle of scotch was half empty, Julian had effectively dismantled his own fortress. He had revealed his need for validation, his emotional triggers, his past failures, his secret greed, his predictable patterns, his dependencies, and his false sense of aggression. He sat there smiling, believing he had just cemented his relationship with the most powerful man in the company. Sterling stood up, smoothing his suit. The hunt was over. He had all the information he needed to either use Julian or discard him when the time was right. "This was enlightening, Julian," Sterling said. And for the first time that night, he was being completely honest. "You've given me a lot to think about." As Julian walked out of the office and into the cool night air, he felt like he was walking on clouds. He didn't feel the hooks that were now embedded in his skin. He didn't see the invisible threads that Sterling would pull over the coming months to make Julian dance to his tune. He was a man who had told all, believing it would make him a king, unaware that in the world of Greene, the man who tells all is the first to be sacrificed. It would take 3 months for the consequences to manifest. It started with Elena, the rival Julian had complained about. She was suddenly given the lead on the Skyline project Julian craved. When Julian went to Sterling to protest, his boss simply looked at him with that same unreadable expression and said, "I thought you were more focused on the process than the recognition, Julian. You told me yourself that Elena was reckless. I thought you'd be happy to let her take the risks while you focused on the core team you're so dependent on. The words were a mirror, reflecting Julian's own reveals back at him like a weapon. Every secret he had shared was now being used as a justification for his own stagnation. He was being moved like a chess piece by a player who knew every one of his weaknesses. Julian stood in the glass-walled hallway, watching through the window as Elena shook hands with the city's lead architects. That was his handshake. That was his legacy. In that moment, the heat of 1,000 suns seemed to rise in his chest, a mixture of pure rage and the cold, stinging realization of his own stupidity. He wanted to storm into Sterling's office, to demand an explanation, to point out the betrayal. But as he took a step toward the heavy oak door, a ghost of a memory stopped him. He remembered the scotch. He remembered the honesty. He remembered the look in Sterling's eyes, not of a mentor, but of a butcher weighing a piece of meat. He realized then that he wasn't a victim of Sterling's cruelty. He was a victim of his own transparency. He had provided the blueprints for his own demolition. Robert Greene writes that the truth is generally avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. The truth for Julian was that he had been an amateur playing a professional's game. He had mistaken being liked for having power. Julian didn't go into the office. Instead, he went to a quiet corner of the city library, a place where the air smelled of old paper and forgotten wisdom. He began to study the masters of the shadows, Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, and the laws of Greene. He realized that to become powerful, he didn't need to work harder. He needed to become a ghost to those who thought they knew him. He needed to quietly eliminate the 7 leaks in his character, not by announcing his change, but by embodying it. The first thing he eliminated was his need for validation. The next time he saw Sterling in the elevator, Julian didn't look for a nod. He didn't offer a smile. He stood with a neutral, relaxed posture, looking straight ahead. When Sterling tried to needle him about Elena's progress, Julian simply gave a short, polite, "I'm sure she'll handle the pressure well," and went back to his silence. By withdrawing his need for approval, Julian had effectively cut the primary wire Sterling used to control him. Sterling's gaze shifted. The predator was confused. The puppet was no longer dancing when the strings were pulled. Next, Julian tackled his emotional reactivity. He spent his evenings practicing a predatory calm. He realized that anger is a luxury he could no longer afford. When a junior associate made a mistake that cost Julian's department a minor client, a situation that would have normally caused Julian to shout, he simply sat the associate down and spoke in a low, terrifyingly calm voice. "The mistake is made. Now tell me how you will fix it by tomorrow morning." He didn't vent. He didn't reveal his frustration. By remaining calm, he projected an aura of absolute authority. People began to fear his silence more than they had ever feared his noise. Then came the hardest part, the elimination of predictability. Julian changed his entire rhythm. He started arriving at the office an hour earlier, but leaving at unpredictable times. He moved his meetings. He stopped eating lunch at the same cafe. He became formless. Robert Greene teaches that by having a visible plan, you become a target. Julian was removing the target from his back. Sterling, who used to know exactly where Julian was and what he was doing, began to lose track of him. The power dynamic was shifting. The hunter was becoming unsure of the prey's location. Julian also began to dismantle his dependence on external crutches. He didn't fire his team, but he stopped telling the world and Sterling how much he needed them. He cross-trained himself in the technical aspects he used to delegate. He ensured that if his entire team vanished tomorrow, the projects would still move forward. He became a one-man fortress. When Sterling suggested reorganizing Julian's department, a thinly veiled attempt to take away his analysts, Julian simply shrugged. "Whatever is best for the firm, Sterling. I can handle the workload regardless." Sterling hesitated. The threat was gone because the dependency was gone. But the most strategic move was how Julian handled his secret greed. He knew Sterling thought he owned Julian through the Skyline legacy. So, Julian began to leak a new false ambition. He started mentioning an interest in moving toward the international branch, away from the city projects. He let it slip in casual conversations with office gossips that he was tired of the local politics and wanted a change of scenery. He was feeding Sterling a false thumbscrew. He was giving the predator a decoy to bite on. As Julian moved through the office, he felt a strange, cold peace. He was no longer the man who sought to be understood. He was the man who sought to be effective. He was quietly eliminating the leaky version of himself. He realized that power is not something you get. It is something you protect. By hiding his weaknesses, they were no longer weaknesses. They were simply private traits that no one could use against him. Sterling noticed the change. He called Julian into his office one afternoon, the same leather chairs, the same vintage scotch. But this time the atmosphere was different. Julian didn't sit until he was invited. He didn't lean in. He didn't drink. "You've been quiet lately, Julian," Sterling said, his eyes narrowing, a bit distant. "Are you unhappy with the Elena situation?" Julian looked at him, his face a perfect mask of indifference. "Not at all, Sterling. I've realized that my previous focus was perhaps too narrow. I'm looking at the bigger picture now." Sterling leaned forward, trying to find a crack, a spark of the old Julian. "And what is this bigger picture?" Julian smiled, a slow, controlled movement that didn't reach his eyes. "You'll see it when it's finished, Sterling, just like everyone else." In that moment, for the first time in their relationship, Julian saw a flicker of something in Sterling's eyes that he hadn't seen before. It wasn't respect, it was caution. Sterling realized that the map he had of Julian's soul was now outdated. He was looking at a stranger who no longer sought his approval, no longer feared his judgment, and no longer revealed his niet intentions. Julian walked out of that office knowing that the quiet elimination was working. He had successfully removed the 7 handles that people used to move him. But a strategist doesn't just stop at defense. A strategist waits for the moment to strike. He knew that by removing his Xiaflakla weaknesses, he had created a vacuum that Sterling would try to fill with a mistake of his own. And Julian was ready to watch for that mistake with the patience of a mountain. Sterling sat in his office, the city lights flickering behind him like the eyes of 1,000 watchers. He had decided it was time to move Julian off the board. He believed Julian's new interest in the international branch was a sign of retreat, a white flag disguised as a career move. Sterling called a meeting with the board of directors, intending to propose Julian's transfer and effectively neutralizing him as a threat to his own absolute control over the city's skyline projects. He walked into the boardroom with the confidence of a man who had already won. But when Sterling opened the door, he didn't find a room full of directors waiting for his guidance. He found Julian standing at the head of the table, showing a digital layout of the very project Sterling had given to Elena. The directors weren't just listening. They were captivated. Julian wasn't seeking their approval. He was providing them with a solution they didn't even know they needed. He had used his unpredictability to secure private meetings with the city's key stakeholders weeks ago, bypassing Sterling's gatekeeping entirely. Because he had stopped being transparent, Sterling had no idea these alliances were being formed. Because he had eliminated his dependence on crutches, Julian had prepared the entire technical presentation himself, proving he was the only one who truly understood the project's heartbeat. Sterling felt the familiar heat of rage rising, the urge to shout, to exert his authority. But as he looked at Julian, who remained perfectly calm, almost bored, Sterling realized he had no leverage left. The hooks he had spent months embedding in Julian had been surgically removed. He couldn't threaten Julian with the international transfer because Julian didn't actually care about it. It was a ghost ambition. He couldn't use Julian's need for validation because Julian was no longer looking at him for a nod. Julian had become a ghost in his own machine, and by the time Sterling saw him, it was already checkmate. The board voted to move the project lead from Elena back to Julian, but with a new condition. Julian would report directly to the board, bypassing Sterling's office. Julian had not just regained his project, he had gained his independence. As the directors filed out of the room, offering Julian the respect they usually reserved for Sterling, the two men were left alone. Sterling poured a drink, his hand trembling slightly, the first sign of a crack in his own armor. "You played me, Julian. You used the very rules I taught you." Julian didn't smile. He didn't gloat. Gloating was a form of needing to appear powerful, a weakness he had left behind in that library. "I didn't play you, Sterling. I simply stopped providing you with the weapons to play me. You told me once that everyone has a price. You were wrong. Some people just have a fortress, and once the leaks are fixed, the fortress is impenetrable." Julian walked out of the boardroom, not as a man who had won a fight, but as a man who had mastered a game. He understood now that the 7 weaknesses weren't just character flaws. They were entry points for the world to control you. By revealing nothing, he had gained the power to control everything. He had learned that in the silence of your own secrets, true strength is born. To become powerful, you must look at yourself with the cold eye of a strategist. You must identify the leaks in your own character that allow others to pull your strings. Ask yourself, do I talk too much when I'm excited? Do I seek a well done from people I don't even respect? Do I reveal my patterns to the point of being a target? Robert Greene's philosophy is not about being a bad person. It is about being an aware person in a world that often uses your best intentions against you. The 7 Zayafliklar: validation, reactivity, past stains, secret greed, transparency, dependence, and the need to appear powerful are the chains that keep most people in a state of servitude. To break them, you don't need a loud revolution. You need a quiet elimination. You need to withdraw your presence from the places where it is disrespected and withdraw your information from the hands that would use it as a weapon. As you walk through your own office, your own social circles, and your own life, remember the story of Julian and Sterling. Remember that the moment you tell someone your price, they will try to buy you. The moment you show someone you're hurt, they will try to wound you. Keep your past a mystery, your present a performance, and your future a secret. Build your inner fortress brick by brick, and let the world wonder what lies behind the walls. Power is not a loud shout from a mountaintop. It is the quiet confidence of a man who knows that no one holds his leash. It is the ability to walk into any room and know that you are the only one who truly knows who you are. The masks we wear are not for deception, they are for protection. And in the game of power, the one who is best protected is the one who survives to lead. Now that we have explored the depths of strategic secrecy and the power of the quiet elimination, it is time for you to take the first step. Look at your own life. Which of these 7 leaks is currently draining your power? Is it the need to be liked, or perhaps the habit of telling too much too soon? Silence is your greatest ally. Start your own quiet elimination today. Do not announce it. Do not explain it. Simply become the ghost that no one can catch. If this strategic journey added value to your life, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to join our circle of strategists. Your support helps us bring more of Robert Greene's wisdom to light. And I have one question for you today. Which of these 7 weaknesses do you find the hardest to hide in your daily life? Let's discuss it in the comments below.